is that the so-called White House press secretary, who's a disgrace, she's a stone-cold liar, had the nerve to stand up there and read talking points being critical of statements all taken out of context that Democrats have made, and didn't have a word to say about anything that MAGA extremists have said or done, including providing aid and comfort to violent insurrectionists here at this Capitol on January 6th, who brutally beat police officers. The president then pardoned those violent rioters, many of whom have gone back into communities across the country to reoffend. And as you pointed out, one of whom threatened to kill me. He said, kill the terrorist. Where did that language come from? What Republicans use that language? Why did that pardon MAGA extremists, violent insurrectionists, choose to use the language of terrorism directed at me when he threatened to kill me at an event? And so how can we take them seriously when they raise these partisan attacks and completely ignore the fact that a lot of folks, including Governor Shapiro, his home was attacked by an arsonist when he and his kids and wife were there. And this so-called White House press secretary wants to lecture America and lecture us about civility. Get lost, clean up your own house before you have anything to say to us about the language that we use.
That was the House Minority Leader at a press conference calling the White House press secretary a stone-cold liar. On camera, no hesitation. After a shooting, the White House tried to use this moment to lecture Democrats about rhetoric. Jeffries turned it into a public dressing down, and the receipts he brought, pardoned insurrectionists, threats on his life, an arsonist at Josh Shapiro's home, those are not talking points. That is the record. Hit subscribe, because now let's rewind to exactly how this press conference got there.
Donald Trump and House Republicans have now shut down the Department of Homeland Security for more than 70 days because Donald Trump and Republicans want to continue to drive their extreme immigration agenda and violent mass deportation machine led by ICE down the throats of the American people. Several weeks ago, a bill was sent over from the United States Senate that was supported by every single Republican and every single Democrat in the Senate. It's a bipartisan bill that has been languishing in the House of Representatives. We can bring that bill to the floor today, and it would fully fund the United States Secret Service. Why is Mike Johnson and House Republicans continuing to refuse to bring that bipartisan bill to the floor that would fund TSA? It would fund the Secret Service. It would fund FEMA. It would fund the Coast Guard. And it would fund the cybersecurity professionals at the Department of Homeland Security who are working hard to keep us safe. Instead, it's House Republicans that continue to play partisan political games. If they really do believe we need to act swiftly, there's a vehicle to do it. Bring the bipartisan Senate-passed bill to the House floor today, and it would fund the Department of Homeland Security in its entirety, with the exception of ICE and the violent Republican mass deportation machine. Questions?
Evan? I want to get your response. I realize this quote is a quotation from someone else, but you Republicans continue to hit you over saying maximum warfare everywhere all the time in your tweet after the Virginia election. So I want you to respond to that. And from a macro perspective, if you can, what are you advising your members to do about rhetoric right now that you can criticize the president without facing GOP criticism?
Political violence in any form directed at anyone, whether that's the right, the left, or the center, is unacceptable. Period. Full stop. The notion that any of us are concerned with so-called criticism from these phony Republicans as it relates to anything that has been said, certainly as it relates to the comment related to maximum warfare everywhere, all the time, in connection with the redistricting battle that Republicans launched. I stand by it. You can continue to criticize me for it. I don't give a damn about your criticism. First of all, that phrase, maximum warfare, everywhere, all the time, came from the White House in the summer of 2025, when they started this redistricting battle. And now they're big mad. Why? Because Democrats have decided to finish it. Get lost.
Mr. Leader, good afternoon. Can you characterize the fractures between the United States and the United Kingdom? And do you think that a speech by the King tomorrow, what would need to be said to repair some of those divides?
We look forward to the state visit by the King. We look forward to greeting him here in the Capitol before he speaks to a joint session of Congress in a bipartisan way. And we look forward to the conversation about what has been our closest ally in the world. And it's a special relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. That toxic Republican policies over the last 15 months or so are eroding. And hopefully the King's visit is going to go a long way toward repairing the damage that this administration has done to one of our most important allies in the world, and certainly our most important ally in NATO.
Are those policies that warrant Iran as a terrorist?
The White House is saying that in the aftermath of Saturday night, that a ballroom should be authorized by Congress to allow the president to have these kind of events and be secure. Would you support, given those concerns, will you support Congress authorizing the construction of a new ballroom at the White House?
At the moment, from the standpoint of national security concerns, here's what I think is most important: that we end this reckless and costly war of choice in the Middle East. The Republicans promised to stop wars in the Middle East, not start them. Those were Donald Trump's words. And Donald Trump and Republicans have now gotten us involved in this reckless and costly war of choice. Billions of dollars are being spent in the Middle East, and our national security posture hasn't been enhanced. There are many who argue that Iran right now is stronger as a result of the war that Donald Trump launched than they were beforehand. They've got control of the Strait of Hormuz. Gas prices have increased. Freedom of movement has been restrained. And now we're in an indefinite ceasefire because it appears that the administration is on its heels without any exit strategy to actually put the American people in the strongest possible position. I have not seen a specific request with respect to the ballroom, but needless to say, we have to drive down the high cost of living. Life has become more expensive as a result of Donald Trump and Republican policies over the last 15 months. We have a broken healthcare system. Apparently, Republicans don't want to spend any time talking about that because they enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. ICE is out of control, and taxpayer dollars are being spent to brutalize and kill American citizens like Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy. And we have a reckless and costly war of choice that's spinning out of control in the Middle East. These are the things that we should actually be focused on, not a vanity project that resulted from the destruction that was unauthorized of the East Wing of the White House.
Mr. Leader,
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I saw your statement on the new Florida map, but I'm curious, were you surprised that the map was so aggressive that DeSantis went after 4 seats instead of 2, given what you described as Democratic overperformances since Trump was elected? And can we expect you to be as active in pushing back against this particular map as you were in support of the Virginia?
The so-called map, which is a DeSantis dummy mander, actually is blatantly unconstitutional. The Florida Constitution is pretty clear as a result of the Fair Districts amendments that were enacted back in 2010. It explicitly prohibits partisan gerrymandering. And so what is the reason that in the middle of the decade, Ron DeSantis has come forward with a map that is designed by his own description to add 4 additional Republican-leaning seats? It is blatantly unconstitutional. If Ron DeSantis wants a different map, he should do what Democrats did in California and Virginia. Take it to the voters, Ron. The problem is he's afraid of that. And so he's going to try to bully the legislature to enact a map that clearly violates the Florida state constitution. And by the way, because it goes after communities of color in South Florida and in Central Florida, also violates the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. No matter what happens with the callous decision in Louisiana, the 14th Amendment still stands. So when it's all said and done, the DeSantis dummy mander is going nowhere as it relates to providing Republicans his clear objective with additional seats. And at the end of the day, because of our forceful response, Republicans are in catch-up mode right now. They're not getting 5 seats out of Texas. They're fortunate if they get 2 or 3. They are deep in the hole. And Florida is not going to make a meaningful difference as it relates to their efforts to rig the midterm elections. That effort has failed. It's over. And what the DeSantis dummy mander might lead to in the first instance is that based on our analysis of the map, there are anywhere between 3 and 5 additional seats that Democrats can pick up if we get a turnout that mirrors 2018 or 2020. And that's exactly what we expect will happen.
Mr. Leader, I know you said you stand by your comments. At the same time, you have been the subject of threats as well. So with respect to this comment about maximum warfare, even if it's about redistricting, why not tone down the language here in this moment?
Here is what just happened. A reporter asked Hakeem Jeffries, the day after a shooting, if he would tone down his language. He said no. He named the White House press secretary by implication, called her a liar, called her a disgrace, listed the threats against his own life, named the pardoned January 6th rioter who told him to kill the terrorist, and pointed directly at the administration's record on political violence. Then he said, "Clean up your own house." That is not a politician being reckless. That is a politician who has decided he is done being defensive. The White House handed him a gift by trying to score political points off a shooting. He took it and hit back harder than anyone in their party anticipated. The DHS bill is still sitting in Mike Johnson's drawer. The Iran ceasefire has no exit strategy. The Medicaid cuts just happened, the cost of living is still rising, and Pete Hegseth, according to Jeffries, should already be fired. The White House's play was to make Jeffries look dangerous. Instead, they put him on camera looking unbreakable. That clip of him saying, "Get lost and clean up your own house," is not going away. In a moment where Democrats were supposed to be on defense, Jeffries just went on offense. And the facts he brought with him were real. That is what makes it stick. If you want this tracked as it develops, subscribe now, because this fight is not over.